I always get nervous when people clap before you've said anything, so it feels like I should just sit down because it won't get any better. Well, first of all, I want to thank Mei-Lin and Bill Dahl and others, the volunteers, for actually organizing this. I mean, these chairs and the food and the glasses and everything, the programs and so on, didn't just happen. It takes a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. Second, I hope that you appreciate that this is intended to be a kind of a lightweight, very casual kind of celebration. I know I kind of screwed up by wearing a three-piece suit, but I have a rule now that I don't appear in public in anything but a three-piece suit because now it's kind of a trademark. Just tangentially, the reason that I wear three-piece suits is because when I was invited to leave Stanford University and come to the ARPA, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, my wife Sigrid said, "We're going to Washington, D.C. You have to wear three-piece suits." So we went to Saks Fifth Avenue at Stanford Shopping Center. She bought three-piece suits, two of which were seersucker, because you know what it's like in July and August in Washington. So shortly after my arrival at ARPA, I had to give congressional testimony, and in the middle of the summer, so I wore a seersucker suit. And I did my thing, and I came back. And a couple of weeks later, I was asked to go up to the director's office on this question of the testimony. And I thought, oh, you know, God, did I say something wrong? And he said, no, we got a nice note from the chairman. He said that he appreciated your testimony. And by the way, he was the best-dressed person from ARPA he had ever seen. This positive feedback convinced me I should wear three-piece suits at all times in public. So here I am. I wanted also to convey to you Bob Collins regrets that he isn't here to enjoy the fine weather, good company, and reunions, but he sends his greetings, and he really appreciates the opportunity here to commemorate what is now a 40-year-old design. He and I spent 2 days at what is now the Crown Plaza Cabana Hotel, but back then it was the Hyatt Cabana, writing by hand the original design of the internet. And my secretary, my then secretary, Carolyn Tynai, who I wish were here, went to the trouble of typing all of this up. And she said, should I keep the written copy? And I said, no, it's easier to read your typed copy. We threw the written copy away. I can tell you I have been castigated no end by every historian who's come to grips with this question of retaining historical information. So for those of you who aren't sure whether you're doing something really profound, hang on to it anyway, just in case. I also feel compelled to recognize two people who have left us. John Postel is one of them, and Mike Moose is the other. And I'm sure there are others. Mike Padlitsky immediately comes to mind. Not everyone who's been part of this adventure is still with us, but we still remember their contributions. And I think that Postel especially was so central to the domain name system, internet address allocations, the RFC editing task. He was our internet assigned numbers authority, and his departure, his early and unexpected departure in 1998 really hurt. But he left a fantastic legacy. And Mike Moose also, who was at the Ballistic Research Laboratory, rescued us in several awkward technical moments. And so I have to say that both of them are well remembered, and I deeply personally appreciate all of their contributions. I thought it would be important to mention to you that this task of inventing the internet was not something that just two people did. Bob and I did, of course, write the first spec, but there were many, many people, not all of them from the U.S., who were part of the Stanford community and were part of a larger community called the International Network Working Group, which was patterned after the network working group that Steve Crocker started to do the NCP work and all of the host-to-host protocols and the applications on top of that for the predecessor ARPANET. And I frankly just copied that idea. There was this wonderful collaborative sense about all of the tasks that ARPA was pursuing at the time. The International Network Working Group included a number of people in Spain, in Europe, and also people in Asia, most notably in Japan. So when this first specification was written in September of 1973, Bob and I went to a meeting in London. It was actually in Sussex, University of Sussex. It was a NATO Advanced Studies Institute event, but during that event, the International Network Working Group convened, and I had an opportunity for the first time to present this design to that group. So I want to emphasize that much of the early work and the continuing work of Internet was not only in the hands of people in the United States. So when people say the U.S. invented the Internet, they're not being fair to many other contributors around the world. I think also it's rather important to recognize how open the Internet has been. The design was done in an open fashion, partly because it arose out of the academic world, and you know how we don't buy information from each other, we share information with each other, and that is what allows us to advance things so quickly. So openness has been a key part of the Internet, and we need to keep it that way. And right now there's a lot of pressure to shut the Internet down for political reasons. There's a lot of pressure to make the Internet less open and accessible and providing users with choices for a variety of business reasons, and none of those should succeed. Our job is to keep the Internet open, free, and growing so that it goes from the 3 billion people it reaches today to the 7 billion people that are on the planet. So I have just two other things that I wanted to draw to your attention. What's important about the Internet is not its physical nature. I remind you that the ARPANET, the packet radio net, the packet satellite net, and the NSF net, four absolutely key parts of the early Internet environment, are all gone now, but the Internet survives, the Internet persists, and it thrives. And the reason is that the Internet is a design. It's a philosophy. It's an architecture. It's not just a bunch of wires, and in particular, it's certainly not a series of tubes. So it's really critical to keep that in mind. It is also not static. Some of you, I'm sure, are well aware of the IPv4 to IPv6 conversion that I've been preaching since 1996. You can all do me a favor, talk to your ISP and insist on what's the schedule for getting you your IPv6 address space. You know, I want to know right here on the dotted line, when are you going to deliver? We need to get the ISPs to get on the stick because we have run out of IPv4 address space. You know why? We started with 32 bits. Bob and I were trying to figure out how big was this thing going to be? How many addresses did we have to have? And we had just, of course, finished having the ARPANET run for several years, 3 or 4 years. And so we thought, well, gee, nationwide network is pretty expensive. So how many would there be per country? And we thought maybe 2, because we did want some competition. And then we said, how many countries are there? And we didn't know, and there wasn't any Google to ask. So we guessed 128 because that's a power of 2, and that's what programmers think about. So that was 256 networks. And then we thought, okay, so how many computers per network? And we thought we could be generous. How about 16 million, because that's 24 bits. That's a 32-bit number. And that looked like it would work okay. Of course, we ran out in February of 2011, and now we really, really need the 128-bit IPv6 address space. So anyway, let's get on the stick and make that happen. The last point I want to make before we go through everybody else's speeches and a wrap-up is I think of you and all the people who are not here but who have been part of this Internet environment making up this gigantic, endless tapestry. Each one of us is a thread in that tapestry. Each one of us has contributed something to the Internet's evolution, design, and continued use and growth. And so it's a rather pretty idea that so many people around the world can contribute to that continuing growth of tapestry. All the color, all the patterns, and everything else are part of the legacy of this design. So I'm really delighted to be around, frankly, to be able to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the design and the 30th or thereabouts anniversary of the operation of the Internet, which was turned on January 1, 1983. So I'll stop there.